feel like I was just up here. I don't know why. Hi, my name is Jihwan Kim. I've been at the Garden for about, my goodness, it's 2022, so about 10 years now. And so for those of you guys who have been here, it's like, yeah. This is my family. That's literally the only good picture we have. And promptly after this, our little one cried for 5 straight hours on the way home from Joshua Tree. Yeah, he's better now. Over the past decade, I've been really blessed to become involved at the Garden in a variety of ways, through CGE, through Praise Team. I was actually part of the hospitality team for a term. I don't think I did anything. I think I just brought food out. But I really loved being active and being involved in the community and building relationships with my brothers and sisters here. And if you know anything about me, I am 100% on the spectrum of extroversion. I love people. I cannot be alone. And so as I became involved in the church, I thought that was what church community was about. Hugging people. I love hugging people. And so it was I felt like church was life-giving. It was fulfilling. That's the way church was supposed to be. Come on Sundays, come on, random days of the week, see people, high five, get to know them, breathe each other's breath, right? And then at the end of 2019, my wife Sunny and I welcomed our first son into our family, and I anticipated that we were gonna have to stay home for a few months, right? It was the middle of winter, and we're like, okay, we're gonna hole up in the apartment. 3 months or so, we're gonna come back out. We're gonna introduce Aaron into the church body that I know and love, which is what? Hugging, right? So we wanted him to grow up in the church and be a part of this life-giving community. But if you remember, 3 months after December is when the world shut down. The global pandemic happened, and I hadn't experienced that level of global chaos, or at least national chaos, since 9/11. And being parents to a new baby was hard enough, and I know many of you remember, and some of you blocked it out of your memory. I laugh at this picture every single day. This is a month into new parenthood. The next picture, I just want you to focus on how big the bags under my eyes are. Excuse the shirtlessness, clothing was optional. It was so tiring and exhausting. And I remember the world was really scary for us. We had this newborn, completely immunocompromised, and we had to get groceries. And so all the messaging from all the experts felt kind of confusing and mixed up, and we didn't know how coronavirus manifested in newborns. Right? We didn't know anything. I remember Sunny, I would have to go out to get groceries, and Sunny would fearfully and anxiously pray for me as I went out. Double masked. I would if anyone got within 6 feet of me, I was get away, right? I've got a baby at home. And it was really scary, and it was really isolating, right? And I'm sure many of you guys realize that. And so we actually cut ourselves off from our friends and family for the safety of our newborn family. And the church announced that we were moving to online services indefinitely, and we were blessed enough to be able to work from home, but we were trying to make that work. We were literally tossing the baby back and forth between meetings to whoever wasn't on camera, right? Right? And so we wanted to do what we could do to keep ourselves and our community safe. But after a few months of this, I began to realize that I really didn't feel like myself. I was irritable. I lacked energy. I was lethargic. I was restless. I didn't really eat much. I had trouble sleeping. And I could feel myself physically just starting to wear down. And then it dawned on me that as difficult and challenging this pandemic was for so many people, and I don't mean to downplay, right, the sickness and the death, but I began to realize it was extra hard for people who liked being around other people, right? And I was like, hey, Sunny, I haven't talked or been in another room with another human being in months. And she goes, so? She's an introvert, right? She's like, this is great. And I remember telling her this analogy. I was like, okay, listen and imagine that for the past 8 months or whatever, I don't remember when it was, that you had to 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, make small talk with strangers, and you didn't get alone time. You couldn't recharge. And I could see the expression on her face change, like into like horror, as she imagined what that would be like for her and how draining that would be. And I think she understood then, right? There were all these like jokes online, like introverts, like this is our time, and like whatever, right? And I remember thinking like, oh, that's not me. So we realized that, we were praying over it, we were trying to work through it, talk it out, and so by the grace of God, I tried to kind of, pull out of it. So I began to mentally and emotionally re-engage, right, with the community. Tried really hard to reach out to people. We were leading a couples CG at the time, and it was a meeting online. I began to re-engage with the praise team, and we were all virtual, so like shout out to the praise team. Like we evolved so fast and so hard to pivot, right? Yeah, I mean I gotta shout out praise team. And then what I realized was like we were the few of us who were meeting weekly to put on the online services. I realized I trusted them with my safety and my family's safety more than I trusted my own family and relatives. My parents, my in-laws, my cousins, or whatever it was. And that became really important to us. And so I began to learn and understand that there was this war zone going on outside, like socially, politically, like health, everything. And God was still trying to teach me something about community during a stage when everything seemed like anti-community. Right? It was all about me, what I want, my freedoms, my decisions, my body, my choice, right? And I realized I had gotten so dependent on being physically present at the church that I had lost sight of the real reason the garden had become so important to me. And that was the community of people and believers who stayed committed to one another in all the small, intangible ways. People checked in on us. They brought us like meals to eat. Right? And they would drop it off and then call, and I would like scurry out like a little rat and like bring it in, right? Like eat. That's an image, right? People who tuned in on Facebook Live to worship with us as Sunny and I like led worship from our living room, right? People who joined our CG meetings, sometimes from hundreds of miles away after they had moved out of state. People who prayed with us and for us through all these terrible events and when the world seemed really bleak and hope seemed kind of like an idiot thing, right? And so those people who reminded us every single week that as we listened to sermons on our various screens, right? And I gotta admit, I never dressed up for a single worship service. I was like in pajamas and like scraping baby food off the walls while we were like singing, right? That it was a temporary, even though it didn't feel like it at the time, it was a temporary separation. It was a temporary difficulty. But we were still being actively shaped and molded into the likeness of Christ and Christ's community in ways that I didn't realize until much, much later. And now, by God's grace, like I'm able to like see people's teeth. Like I hugged like 6 people this weekend. It was like amazing. And as we begin to feel more comfortable coming together physically, I suspect I'm not the only one who through these past 2 years have gained a newfound appreciation of what it means to be part of a community, right? It's not just being next to someone, it's doing life together, sharing the hard things. And so it took me a couple years, and we have a second baby now, right? Pandemic babies. But now I think I'm beginning to understand that like true Christian fellowship and true togetherness is about the bonds that are kind of formed as we work through difficult times together. Not just personally, but globally, nationally. And I know Pastor David says this like all the time. And I'm sorry, I like roll my eyes. But I really do believe the garden's best days are really ahead of us, because I think as a church and as a body, we've had to struggle and endure and really learn what it means to be better together during a season when we really couldn't be together. And I think that's been a really valuable lesson for me, and I really hope that we can all kind of reflect on the past 2 years, where we've come, how far we've come, and begin to like really give God praise and glory for the ways that He's shaped us to be better individually, but through that, better as a church body and as brothers and sisters. So I appreciate all of you. I love all of you. Thank you for joining us and helping me feel like I'm part of this community for the long run. I love you guys. Thank you.